The day before my due date, my husband was out celebrating at a concert with Skylar, his personal assistant. Meanwhile, I went into labor prematurely. My water broke, and he kept hanging up my calls for help, eventually turning off his phone. He cheated on me during my pregnancy, and the stress led to premature labor. Our daughter aspirated amniotic fluid and was rushed into an incubator for emergency care. I had a hysterical, furious argument with Marcus, but then Eleanor tried to console me. Skylar, after all, saved Marcus's life. There's no need for you to act this way. Now that you have a child, you should settle down and make your marriage work. I thought of our daughter and finally compromised. But I set one condition. During my postpartum recovery period, you must focus solely on taking care of me and have no further contact with Skylar. If you agree to that, I'll pretend none of this ever happened. Marcus, expressionless, handed me a report. It was a blood test result. HCG levels were higher than normal. Positive. Pregnant. I trembled as I looked up, meeting Marcus's cold gaze. Skylar is carrying my child, and she's also the one who saved my life. There's no way I can abandon her. I've decided to go take care of Skylar. My parents will look after you, but I'm clearly the one who saved you. After hearing his words, my heart finally died. In that case, let's get a divorce. Marcus's hand, holding his keys, paused. He looked up at me, incredulous. Divorce? You just gave birth to my child. Who would want you after a divorce? I never said I wouldn't stay with you. What are you making such a fuss about? I silently shed tears, my heart aching, but I spoke with resolve. I'm not making a fuss. What you've done has crossed my line. I can't forgive you. Marcus's face darkened, his eyes full of blame as they fixed on me. Grace, why are you always so selfish? I almost died back then. Skylar donated her kidney to me. She never tried to leverage my kindness for repayment. She never wanted to fight you for anything. She was willing to be my mistress for life. What have you ever done for me? I've overlooked your faults, but now you're forcing me to choose by threatening divorce. I can't let her lose a kidney and now a child for me. I can't be that cruel and heartless to her. You found it too much trouble to care for me after my surgery, choosing to escape on a business trip. I never blamed you for that, so now you have no right to talk about divorce. His accusations and complaints crashed into my heart, making it almost impossible to breathe from the pain. 3 years ago, right after we got married, Marcus was diagnosed with kidney failure. I immediately went for compatibility tests, and the moment the successful match results came out, Arthur and Eleanor intercepted me at the hospital room door. They pleaded earnestly, begging me to trick Marcus into believing that Skylar was the one donating the kidney. Apparently, Skylar's parents had helped Eleanor when they were younger, and now Skylar wanted Marcus to arrange a position for her at his company, but ruthlessly refused the request. Arthur and Eleanor felt they had lost face in front of old friends, and both sides had been at odds for a long time. Marcus and I were deeply in love at the time, and I couldn't bear to see his relationship with his parents become so strained. Furthermore, I was convinced that because Marcus loved me, he wouldn't agree to me giving him my kidney. So, facing Arthur and Eleanor's request, I nodded in agreement without any hesitation. But the kidney transplant wasn't a hardship Marcus alone would endure. I lay in a hospital bed for just as long as he did, with no other option. I had Arthur and Eleanor relay the news that I was on a business trip. Afterward, Skylar got her wish and joined Marcus's company as his personal assistant. I never suspected anything until my water suddenly broke at home. I frantically called Marcus, only to see intimate photos that Skylar had posted on social media. That's when I realized Marcus had hung up on me because he was busy accompanying his assistant to a concert. Yet, Skylar was someone I had personally pushed into his life. I opened my mouth, only to find my voice was hoarse beyond recognition. What about me? Marcus, you cheated on me during my pregnancy. Wasn't that cruel and heartless toward me? You can't accept our daughter not having a father, but can our daughter accept her father being shared with someone else? A flicker of guilt crossed Marcus's face, and his voice softened. I'm sorry, Grace. I drank too much that day, but you were pregnant, and I didn't want to overwork you either. If you're willing, I can bring Skylar to live with us. You'll have nothing to do during your postpartum recovery period, so you can teach her some prenatal care knowledge when you're bored. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. Are you saying that right after giving birth? I should accept the fact that my husband cheated, and then help him care for his mistress during her prenatal care? Arthur and Eleanor couldn't bear to listen any longer. Knowing the full story, they angrily rebuked him. Marcus, we cannot do something so wrong to your lawful wife. Apologize to Grace at once. Marcus glanced at me. The doctor said Grace's uterus isn't suitable for having more children in the future. Skylar is 4 months pregnant, and the prenatal checkup shows it's a boy. Grace, wasn't your dream to have 2 children? Since you can't achieve that on your own now, when Skylar's child is born, both children can be raised by you. My mind was in turmoil, and my postpartum body felt even weaker. That's enough. Our child is still in critical condition. Go see the baby first. Marcus, however, sighed wearily. Grace, Skylar had some Braxton contractions last night after the concert. I need to go take care of her first. My parents can go see our child. Seeing him leave, Arthur and Eleanor hurried after him, perhaps sensing something was amiss. Eleanor turned back, smiling at me. Grace, don't worry. You're the only daughter-in-law we recognize. But you know, our family has relied on a single male heir for 3 generations. So your father and I will go check on Skylar first. If she's all right, I'll go straight to see the baby. Watching their resolute backs disappear, I felt a sense of disorientation. Just yesterday, everything was fine. They repeatedly said they loved me, loved our child. But now, they all left without hesitation, leaving me, weak, to face everything alone. But I couldn't abandon my child. Gritting my teeth, I leaned against the wall and walked the most difficult path. Outside the operating room, the doctor told me the baby had been saved but needed to be placed in an incubator for observation. A wave of relief washed over me, but my body couldn't hold on any longer, and I fainted. When I regained consciousness, the nurses changing dressings were speaking in hushed tones. This new mother is so pitiful. She came to give birth, and there's no one with her. No one even knew when she fainted. Sigh. We're all women. Let's make sure to pay extra attention to her. The kindness from strangers brought tears streaming down my face. But Arthur and Eleanor didn't return to see me or the baby for a whole week. Thankfully, the postpartum nanny I hired at a high price took excellent care of me. My baby was also safely discharged from the incubator, and I named her Annie, after being anxious in the hospital for so long, and then told I could be discharged. I couldn't wait to take Annie home. Pushing open the door, I saw Marcus solicitously adding food to Skylar's bowl, while Arthur and Eleanor fussed over her, asking if she was warm enough. They looked like a perfectly happy family. The cozy scene was shattered by my arrival. The living room fell silent. Everyone quickly suppressed their smiles and awkwardly put down their cups. Before I could say anything, Skylar's eyes reddened. She stood up and looked at me hesitantly. Marcus was clearly sympathetic to her vulnerability. He immediately stood up and put his arm around her shoulder in a protective gesture. Grace, you haven't contacted me all week. I thought you had come to your senses. So, they were waiting for my tacit acceptance. But that entire week, I had been worried sick about Annie every single day. Skylar flashed a triumphant smile at me, but then started to whimper. Sister, I've done wrong, and I apologize to you, but the baby is innocent. How can you wound my heart like this? With that, she broke free from Marcus's embrace and made a move to run out, but I blocked her path, reaching out and snatching the protective charm from her neck. Amidst gasp of surprise, Marcus, with a reprimanding tone, shoved me hard without a word. Grace, what do you think you're doing? I fell to the floor, holding up the charm in my hand as I demanded. This is a protective charm my mother personally obtained for me before she passed away. Didn't you know that? How dare you give my personal possession to someone else to wear without my permission? Marcus lowered his head, guiltily avoiding my gaze. Yet he spoke self-righteously. Skylar isn't someone else. She's your sister. Infuriated, I retorted sarcastically. Not everyone is as shameless as you. My parents were devoted to each other their entire lives and only had me. I don't have any illegitimate half-sisters who shouldn't be mentioned in polite society. Skylar's face went pale, and she looked as if she might collapse. Sister, I was wrong. I shouldn't have fallen for Mr. Marcus. I shouldn't have appeared before you. Take it out on me. Just don't harm my baby. I'll leave now. I'll leave this place. Marcus shot me a harsh glare, then carefully soothed the woman in his arms. Skylar, SHHH. The doctor said you shouldn't get too emotional. Don't cry. Rest assured, I won't let my son be called illegitimate either. So you don't need to care what anyone else thinks. This is my home, a house I bought. I decide who lives here. You're not the one who should leave. Every word Marcus spoke felt like a dagger to my heart. But he was right. Every brick and tile here belonged to Marcus, and I had no claim to any of it. Grace, for the sake of our marriage, I'll take you to a postpartum care facility. Once you've had time to think things through, I'll come pick you up. No need, but wouldn't allow me to refuse. He roughly pulled me to my feet and led me to the car. The postpartum care facility must have been chosen long ago. The moment we arrived, someone greeted him familiarly as Mr. Marcus. I just didn't know who this postpartum care facility was truly arranged for. Seeing I wouldn't move, a flicker of helplessness crossed Marcus's eyes. He bent down and gently lifted me into his arms. All right, it was indeed wrong of me to give the protective charm to Skylar, but she's a spoiled young woman. She won't listen unless I humor her. I'll go personally get another one for you later. What I did just now was just for show. Once you've comfortably finished your postpartum recovery period here, I'll come take you home, okay? I sat on the bed, and as he turned to leave, I grabbed his hand. Marcus, if I was the one who donated a kidney to save you 3 years ago, would you still have wronged me like this? As soon as I finished speaking, he froze for a moment, then coldly brushed my hand away. Unfortunately, there are no ifs, Grace. Even if Skylar wasn't carrying my child, simply because she saved my life, I cannot betray her feelings. Do you understand? After left, I contacted an old friend from 3 years ago and asked her to find and make copies of both the kidney donation consent form and the pre-surgery informed consent form from back then. For our child's sake, I wanted to give Marcus one more chance, but I never expected to see Skylar at the postpartum care facility. When she faced me alone, she propped her hands on her lower back, her face radiating arrogance. Grace, I heard you went to all your prenatal checkups by yourself. I'm different, brother. He personally accompanies me every time. He even picked out the hospital for me himself. My hand, which was gently playing with the baby, paused. Throughout my 9 months of pregnancy, Marcus had never once accompanied me to a prenatal checkup. So, he wasn't too busy with work. He just didn't want to accompany me. Look, brother even went with me to take maternity photos. He also specifically learned to cook nutritious meals and now makes dinner for me himself every day. In the evenings, he accompanies me to prenatal classes and for walks. Marcus had never done a single one of these things for me. Glancing at Skylar's triumphant face, I knew she was deliberately trying to provoke me. I took a soft breath and looked at her. If he cares so much about you, why has he never mentioned divorce to me, and still keeps you as his mistress? Hidden away? Skylar's delicate features instantly contorted, but quickly returned to composure. She lifted her chin haughtily. Brother personally obtained a protective charm for me and our baby. Yours certainly doesn't get that kind of treatment. Ha, if you ask me, people who lack something always try to prove something. Annie, she's destined to never have peace in her life. Once your child is gone, brother naturally won't want you anymore. Asterisk smack. Asterisk a loud sound. Skylar clutched her face, looking at me in disbelief, then burst into tears, screaming, "Sister, I was wrong. I shouldn't have fallen for Mr. Marcus. I shouldn't have appeared before you. Take it out on me. Just don't harm my baby." I realized something was wrong. The moment I turned around, Marcus's palm landed squarely on my face. His eyes filled with disappointment. "Grace, if you have anger, take it out on me. I never thought you'd actually harm a pregnant woman." With repeatedly crying out in pain, Marcus didn't give me a chance to explain. He simply picked her up and rushed her to the hospital. I looked at the documents on the bedside table, and all desire to explain myself vanished. When my postpartum recovery period ended, I left the divorce agreement and the kidney donation consent form behind. Without looking back, I took Annie and the postpartum nanny and boarded a plane. Just before takeoff, my phone rang, Marcus's name flashing repeatedly. Without a moment's hesitation, I decisively turned off my phone. I had already decided to divorce and give up completely the moment I saw the new protective charm around Skylar's neck. My previous thought of giving Marcus another chance was to provide our child with a complete family. Yet, he could kneel and bow to obtain a protective charm for Skylar's unborn child, while since Annie's birth, Marcus, as her father, had never even given her a glance. In that case, there was nothing left to cling to. While the postpartum nanny held Annie, who was sound asleep, I quickly inventoried my finances in my mind. I was only grateful now that after marriage, I hadn't relied on Marcus's promise of "I'll take care of you," by insisting on continuing to work. Even if I left with nothing, the salary I'd saved over the years was enough for me to start fresh with my child. The plane landed, and I returned to my hometown with Annie. Here, I had the house my parents left me when my mother was on her deathbed. She repeatedly cautioned me not to sell this property after they were gone. If anything unexpected happened, it could still provide me with a place to live. At the time, I dismissed it, never imagining my mother's words would come true. After settling Annie and the postpartum nanny at the neighbor's house, I directed the cleaning staff to tidy up the living room and master bedroom. I, however, pushed open the door to the second bedroom. 3 diaries on the desk deeply stunned my eyes. I gently touched them, and turning to the first page, I saw Marcus's familiar handwriting. My one and only goddess in those years, Grace. This was the first gift he gave me after Marcus and I officially started dating in our senior year of college. 3 thick diaries, over 1,000 pages, filled with his secret crush on me, his love at first sight, and the many coincidental encounters he orchestrated. The youthful stirrings of affection were so genuine and moving, but now, like the yellowing pages, they were forever confined to the past. Mrs. Beverly, with her grandson Leo, came over to help, and what she saw was me clearing out the gifts Marcus had given me before I got married. Grace, every time I used to visit, I'd see you happily clutching these things. Now that you have a child, why are you putting them away? What hurdle could a married couple possibly not overcome? I rubbed my lower back, smiling faintly. Mrs. Beverly, my mother would support me. Mrs. Beverly fell silent, saying nothing more. She only had her grandson Leo throw the boxes full of gifts into the downstairs trash bin. As I requested, the 15-year-old boy worked tirelessly, carrying boxes up and down. To show my gratitude, I gave him the autographed Kobe basketball I had treasured. Marcus had also reluctantly given me this basketball after learning my father was a fan of Kobe. Fortunately, despite the significant generation gap with the 15-year-old, he also loved Kobe, influenced by his father. After the house was thoroughly cleaned, I carried Annie back to what would be our future home. From then on, I would spend the rest of my life here. After finished shopping with Skylar, he suddenly remembered that today was the day Grace was to be discharged from the postpartum care facility. He knew he was late and wanted to call Grace to ask her to wait a little longer, but he couldn't get through, and when he finally tried again, her phone was off. Since they had started dating, it was the first time Grace hadn't answered his call. A flicker of unease crossed Marcus's heart as he realized this. He recalled Grace's shocked yet calm expression after he impulsively lost control and hit her a few days prior. He also remembered rushing Skylar to the hospital for a checkup, only to be met with a hard-to-read look from the doctor. The blow was to the face. It wouldn't harm the baby in her womb. He realized it was all an act by Skylar, yet he had actually believed her, and hadn't even given Grace a chance to explain. At that moment, the idea of taking Skylar home was completely dismissed. He was desperate to go pick up Grace and their daughter. Skylar, something just came up with work that I need to handle. Take a cab home, but grabbed his hand, clinging to him. Brother, I'm so tired from shopping. I really can't walk anymore. Will you please take me home? Marcus used to find Skylar's childlike coquettishness and playful nagging endearing, but now he felt somewhat annoyed. If it were Grace, she would immediately insist on letting him go, afraid of disturbing his work. And he vaguely remembered his mother saying that Grace had excellent stamina. She could shop all day while pregnant and still cook dinner for them when they got home. Why was Skylar so overly delicate? Still, he suppressed his impatience and drove Skylar home. As he left, remembering Grace's incredulous gaze when she saw Skylar at home last time, he repeatedly cautioned her. Skylar, remember to stay in your room. Come out only after Grace and I have talked everything through. Perhaps it was because they hadn't seen each other for days, but Marcus found himself missing Grace intensely. Passing a flower shop, he even got out and bought a bouquet. He couldn't remember whether Grace preferred roses or sunflowers, so he simply bought both. In recent years, his business had grown significantly, and he had indeed neglected his family much more. This realization filled Marcus with some guilt, and he secretly resolved to make more time for Grace in the future, even when he was with Skylar. But this guilt vanished the moment he saw the divorce agreement Grace had left on the table. Marcus's face darkened. He thought, how could Grace be so selfish? She wasn't willing to care for him after his surgery back then, and now she wasn't willing to accept reality. He was a man of status and reputation. If it got out that he'd been divorced for cheating on his wife during childbirth, how would his business partners view him? Marcus snorted coldly, then noticed another document, face down, on the table. He opened the document, and his entire body stiffened. His pupils constricted, and after rereading it word by word several times, he collapsed into a chair, utterly drained. The person who donated a kidney to him was Grace? Marcus's hands trembled as he dialed his mother's number. Mom, Grace was the one who donated her kidney to me back then. Why did you lie and tell me it was Skylar? Marcus, you know everything? Listen to Mom explain. Marcus wasn't listening to the so-called explanation. He could already discern the truth. His heart felt as if it were clenched by an invisible hand, making it impossible to breathe. For years, out of spite for not being cared for after his surgery, he had covertly and overtly mocked Grace endlessly. He even deliberately used work as an excuse not to come home several times when Grace was sick, all to spite her. What had he done all these years? He had even cheated and threatened to make Grace share a husband with another woman. The staff from the postpartum care facility came to clean, and only then did Marcus snap back to reality. Where did the person staying in this room go? Marcus had accompanied Skylar to the postpartum care facility many times before to inquire about things. The staff were already familiar with him, only later realizing that Ms. Grace was his actual wife. Remembering Grace's resilient expression as she left, the staff member instinctively shook her head, indicating she didn't know. Such a gentle lady. Mr. Marcus was truly unworthy of her. However, after being handed a pack of cigarettes, the postpartum care facility's security guard grinned. I think I heard them say they were going to the airport. Marcus almost immediately knew where Grace had gone, and the unease in his brows deepened. His mother-in-law's dying wishes seemed to replay vividly in his mind. Grace might not be able to accept our deaths. She definitely won't return to the house in her hometown. You must remember to treat her well. If one day Grace does go back to the old family home, you must also remember not to disturb her life again. Marcus's heart pounded like a drum. He couldn't believe Grace actually didn't want him anymore, but was a woman he had pursued for 3 years. It was impossible for him to let her go now. Ordering his secretary to buy the earliest flight to Grace's hometown, Marcus floored the accelerator and sped toward the airport. As he drove, Marcus suddenly laughed. He inexplicably remembered the last time he sped like this was his senior year of college. He had confessed his feelings over the phone, expecting another rejection, but heard a soft hum from the other end. 3 years of adoration had come true. Marcus stole his father's car, ran countless red lights, and finally held the beautiful woman in his arms. The moment he pulled out his plane ticket, he confirmed it. He felt no love for Skylar, only a desire to repay her for saving his life. No, the debt of gratitude had long been worn away by 3 years of working together. Skylar was truly quite foolish. She couldn't even handle simple tasks. Nothing more than a pretty face. Marcus clutched his chest, admitting his own contemptibility for the first time. It was for revenge. He had always harbored resentment over Grace's indifference towards him 3 years ago. But fortunately, it wasn't too late. He wouldn't sign the divorce agreement, and he would spend the rest of his life making it up to Grace. But calls kept coming, one after another, like a death knell. An expression of annoyance crossed Marcus's face. What a troublesome and foolish person she was. Grace would never act like this. After texting his parents to kick Skylar out, he turned off his phone. He couldn't wait any longer. He hadn't seen Grace in 7 whole days. After learning that Grace was his true savior, his longing for her grew wildly. Like seaweed, he would personally go bring his beloved and his child home. Perhaps it was due to the new environment, but Annie cried a lot that night. The postpartum nanny and I took turns holding and comforting her to sleep, finally making it through a difficult night. During the day, following some superstitious advice I'd found online, I closed the door and wildly swung a knife around the room. As I chopped, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Over the years, Marcus's business had grown larger and larger. He took me to various parties and auctions, dressed in opulent gowns. I made sure to look dignified and proper every day, so that Marcus's name would only be met with praise. It had been ages since I had done something so unrestrained, so freeing. I never imagined that as I stood there, foolishly laughing with a knife in hand, I would meet Marcus's gaze. The height of the second floor was enough for us to see each other clearly. After giving instructions to the postpartum nanny, I took Marcus to a cafe near my house. But to my surprise, having not returned for years, that cafe had long since closed down. A look of wistful loss crossed Marcus's face. I remember you used to love the mocha here. You were so lazy back then. You wouldn't even come downstairs even though it was so close. The takeout order slips I ordered for you probably filled up your drawers, didn't they? Marcus continued talking, lost in his own thoughts. Seeing that I hadn't responded, he finally turned back to look at me, his face filled with awkwardness. Grace, I'm here to apologize today. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have laid a hand on you that day. I gave a nonchalant smile. It's fine. It's in the past. Have you read the divorce agreement? If you have no objections, please sign it, and then we can go to City Hall to register the divorce. Marcus gasped, and when he spoke again, his voice was trembling. Grace, please don't. I'm sorry. I apologize for all the terrible things I've done and all the awful things I've said. I've already made Skylar move out and cut ties with her. I was blind and foolish, doing all those wrong things because of a supposed life-saving act that didn't even exist. Grace, please give me one more chance. Can you forgive me this one time? His pleading eyes didn't seem fake, but it was too late, and he hadn't asked a single thing about our child the entire time. I shook my head. Marcus, we can't go back. Even if broken glass is glued back together, the cracks never disappear. Since you now know I was the one who saved you, I'll leverage my kindness for repayment just this once. Divorce me and let me go. Perhaps he hadn't seen me refuse so resolutely, so uncompromisingly, in a long time. Marcus, who had enjoyed a life of privilege for so long, had an incredulous look on his face. Grace, you can't deny me even one chance. Before I could respond, Marcus's phone began to ring frantically. I heard a furious roar coming from the other end of the line. Marcus, why on earth are you insisting I kick Skylar out? I'm warning you. Our family must have a grandson. Skylar saw your message, got emotional, and started having contractions. She's in the hospital now. Get back here and be with her immediately. If you don't come back, then don't ever call me your mother again. Marcus's face darkened, meeting my faint smile. He still felt a pang of guilt. After all, he had just lied to me, claiming he had cut ties with Skylar. Grace, believe me, I truly don't love her. I will definitely make her abort this child and not let her disrupt our lives. I knew Marcus well enough to know he was sincere at that moment, but I also knew Eleanor just as well. So I merely nodded, telling him to go back and sort out the situation with Skylar first, and then we could talk. After he left, filled with hope, I immediately sent my medical report to Eleanor. I was born with a thin uterine wall, so pregnancy was already difficult for me. Annie was an unexpected blessing, but due to complications during childbirth and a DC, after Annie's birth, I would never be able to conceive another child in my life. At the hospital before, they had only heard Marcus mention it in passing and weren't aware of the specific details. This report was enough to make them understand that if they didn't let Marcus divorce me, their dream of a grandson would truly be shattered. By leveraging their own desires, I wouldn't need to concern myself with anything else. Every day, I stayed home, playing with Annie. On sunny days, I'd take her outside to bask in the sun. Raising a child, while fulfilling, was also incredibly tiring, so much so that I had no time for sentimental sorrows. So when I received the signed divorce agreement from Marcus, all I felt was relief, likely out of guilt. Marcus allotted me 2/3 of his assets. This money was enough for Annie and me to live a carefree life. I was perfectly content with this. After arranging a time with Marcus, I flew back alone. At the entrance of City Hall, I saw Marcus, unshaven and disheveled, and almost thought I had mistaken him for someone else. Meeting my surprised gaze, he offered a bitter smile, but I had no time to listen to his grievances. I urged him to register the divorce quickly. After we registered, I turned to leave, but he grabbed my arm. Grace, I had my reasons. Do you hate me that much? I looked at him, a hint of disappointment in my eyes. Perhaps you've forgotten you have a biological daughter, but Annie is waiting for me to come home. I need to catch my flight back. He was completely stunned. Just as I said, he still had no concept of having a daughter. Meeting my disappointed gaze, Marcus's hand recoiled as if he'd received an electric shock, but he bought a plane ticket and flew back with me. During the flight, he talked endlessly, but it was all about how he was forced to divorce me due to his parents' pressure, and that after Skylar gave birth to a son, he would take the child, pay Skylar off, and send her away, asking me to wait for him. I refused him gently but firmly. After getting off the plane, I ignored him and took a taxi straight home. For the next month, every mealtime, I would receive takeout deliveries at my door. I knew Marcus was ordering them, but after my repeated rejections went unheeded, I chose to silently accept them. During this time, the postpartum nanny's next employer went into labor early, urging her to start as soon as possible. I was left alone with the baby and found myself quite overwhelmed for a few days. Then Clara suddenly knocked on my door. Amidst my surprise and delight, I finally felt Marcus had done something good. Aunt was the nanny we hired right after we got married. She was an excellent cook and a discreet person. If it hadn't been for her mother-in-law's severe illness requiring care, I truly wouldn't have wanted to let her go. Now that she could come back to help me, I let out a sigh of relief. This way, I wouldn't miss the day for the divorce. After getting my divorce certificate, I hurried home and was delighted to discover that Annie had learned to roll over. Overjoyed, I made a social media post to celebrate. In the days that followed, I felt like I had made a profound breakthrough. I posted photos of Annie on social media every day, but I never imagined that Eleanor, who had been completely uninterested since Annie's birth, would like all my social media posts. I felt something was off, but I kept quiet. My curiosity reached its peak when I saw a cash gift from Eleanor. A friend from the hospital clarified things for me. It turned out that the child Skylar was carrying wasn't Marcus's. Apparently, Skylar had simultaneously seduced Marcus and another wealthy heir, having intimate relations with both in succession. Skylar couldn't even be sure whose child it was, but seeing Marcus's exceptional attentiveness towards her, she decided to pin it on him. But who knew that after the kidney donation lie was exposed, Marcus became especially cold towards her again. The shift in his attitude was unacceptable to Skylar. She secretly underwent an amniocentesis for testing and discovered that the child was actually the wealthy heir's. She went to his house with the report but was beaten and thrown out. The circle of wealthy people was small, and Eleanor quickly learned about it, becoming so furious she was hospitalized. Seeing that I hadn't claimed the cash gift, Eleanor soon video called me. I politely answered her questions and even let her see Annie. Now she no longer disliked Annie for being a girl, calling her my precious granddaughter repeatedly. I accepted the cash gift with a clear conscience. After all, going through all this had taught me that everything else was false. Only money was real. After was discharged from the hospital, she and Arthur came to my hometown. They bought a house there to help me with Annie. Marcus also used this opportunity to launch a furious campaign to win me back. But I never agreed. Being financially stable, having free time, a child, and being single, this was truly the best state to be in now. As for the future, even if Marcus found a new love, Annie's grandparents had already developed a deep affection for her, and my Annie would never be forgotten. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support is the greatest motivation for us to share more stories of women's power. This is Love and Fist.